Thank you for tuning in to this Dance Friends audiocast. My name is Sarah. Our topic today is traveling dances versus everything else. In social partner dancing, every dance style falls into one of these two categories: dances that travel the floor and dances that don't. In all the traveling dances, dance partners seek to make a circuit around the perimeter of the dance floor. In the non-traveling dances, sometimes called spot dances, you stay in one general area of the dance floor. This can be a tricky distinction because some of the traveling dances migrate slowly and some of the spot dances move around quite a bit. You may also associate these distinctions with smooth versus rhythm dances in American style or standard versus Latin dances in international style. But these categories don't quite capture the specific functional distinction that I'm addressing in this article. It is an important distinction that I think is much more helpful in learning to use your dances effectively, and it is a distinction that is frequently overlooked or misunderstood by new learners of these styles. Knowing about the special demands of traveling dances versus all the others will help you use the dance floor more effectively and keep these dances in better perspective as you're learning. All social dances offer opportunities for taking up more space or less space on the dance floor. All dances can be expanded and contracted depending on the size and shape of your dance floor. As you learn more and more advanced steps, many dances give you the flexibility to cross to other zones of the room. While you may be traveling in a certain sense in all your dances, the traveling dances as a category have specific structural and functional demands that govern their mode of movement. A traveling dance is one that moves around the dance floor on an imaginary racetrack going counterclockwise. The fundamental action of these dances propels the dancers forward along this track called the line of dance. While they might have some dance moves designed to tread water in one spot for the purposes of traffic management, the motivating thrust of these dances is to aspire always to resuming forward travel along the line of dance. The term line of dance can be a bit misleading, as it calls to mind a single narrow pathway. That's why I prefer to conceptualize the traveling dances as moving along a racetrack, because then you can imagine multiple lines or lanes of dancing, as well as the necessity to change lanes as you dance. You might start out in the middle lane as you dance, but because of traffic, you have to move to the outer lane or the inner lane. Often you may be switching amongst these lanes regularly as you make your way down the floor, just like driving on a congested multi-lane highway. The most important quality of traveling our line of dance is the same as traveling on any highway: direction. You must always be moving forward in the same direction as the cars, the dancers, around you. The smooth dances and the standard dances are indeed all traveling dances. Waltz, tango, foxtrot, Viennese waltz, and quick-step all share the common aim of traveling along our racetrack line of dance. But not all rhythm or Latin dances belong to the everything else or non-traveling dances category. Paso doble travels, and samba is ideally a traveling dance, though it often gets treated as a spot dance on the beginner level, and people sometimes get stuck in spot mode in this dance. Several specialty dances also belong to the traveling category. Most of the country and western dances, including progressive two-step, Texas two-step, country waltz, and country shuffle, travel, as well as our de facto Pittsburgh favorite, the polka. Argentine tango can be danced in a very small area like a spot dance, but given enough space to roam, it will travel along the line of dance with a little more leisure than the smooth, standard, and country dances do. It takes time to ebb and flow with cool, intricate movements that rotate into themselves before expanding outward again. Appreciated for its lively big band era flavor, Peabody is the traveling cousin of foxtrot that is still taught and danced in some ballroom communities. The New Vogue dances, inspired by smooth and standard and practiced primarily in Australia, also travel around the floor. All the remaining dances, everything else, do not travel in the racetrack manner. If these dances move enough to cross a significant area of the floor, it is simply because one pattern or amalgamation takes them in a particular direction. These significantly moving patterns might travel in a line, in a square, or in something resembling a large circle or polygon, but they can be aimed anywhere and do not need to observe the directional progression of the line of dance. The leader simply must make sure there is space to execute one of these wider spanning patterns before initiating it. Leaders may find it helpful to have a rough mental picture of the size and shape of the pattern, as well as the average amount of space it takes up on the dance floor. It is important to understand that the navigational demands of the traveling dances do make them harder. Many beginner leaders, and sometimes advanced ones too, are frustrated when their waltz or foxtrot feels full of mistakes, fits, and starts. Are you asking yourself, why isn't my waltz in better shape, especially compared to your cha-cha, rumba, or swing? If your everything else dances are feeling pretty good and your traveling dances are still hit and miss, you are not alone. The traveling dances will always be harder than spot dances. It's because the traveling dances require you to do all the same things, for example, keep timing, remember your steps, lead clearly, execute style and technique, etc., as any other social dance. But on top of all that, you also have to navigate your racetrack. Because the traveling dances always require this additional layer of attention, they will always present a greater challenge. You're not crazy. Traveling dances are more difficult, and the navigational dimension makes them more demanding at every level for beginners and advanced dancers. In this way, leading traveling dances is sort of like driving a car or your other favorite motorized vehicles. As leader, you have to think about what's happening now, but also what's happening up the road. You have to think in extended linear space, how the dance elements you lead in the moment will play out over the next several feet of dance floor space, your racetrack as you're dancing. You can't just do any dance pattern that jumps to mind. You have to understand where you can do it, how you need to be oriented to the dance floor, and how it will travel you. This sounds like a lot to keep track of, but a good personal lesson teacher will make sure that you learn the navigational aspects of any new dance pattern. Traveling elements, patterns, and amalgamations all have their particulars and subtleties, and that's why it's useful to have a teacher who knows you well and can present these facets to you in terms that match your learning style. I have taught entire lessons and classes just on navigational theory. But here are the two main things you should know about every element, pattern, or amalgamation you do in the traveling dances. First, make sure you know where you should be oriented in relation to the dance floor at the beginning of the pattern. The way you're pointed when you start a move will have a huge effect on where you end up. If you're facing the wrong direction when you start, it's the difference between success and chaos. There are lots of subtle gradations in room alignments for traveling dances, but the two you'll use most often are diagonal center, which is aiming slightly left toward the center of the floor, and diagonal wall, which is angled slightly right or toward the outer edge of the floor, that is, the wall around the room. If you want a more detailed technical discussion on the elements with a handy diagram, please check out the link that is included in the text blog version of this article. Suffice to say, if you're not facing in the correct direction when you start, your pattern will meander off in a direction that does not follow the line of dance, and may put you in a sticky traffic situation or off the edge of the floor where there's no room left to dance. Learn your starting room alignments for each new pattern or element. If you're going back in your mind trying to sort through the elements you already know, a solid generalization is that left-turning elements usually start diagonal center, and right-turning elements usually start diagonal wall. But there are some quirky exceptions out there, so if you're not sure, please consult your personal lesson teacher on your next lesson. The second main thing you should remember: have a general idea of how your pattern is designed to travel. This advice may not be relevant to you depending on the story playing out in your brain as you dance. If you're an element-based leader going from one smaller unit, that is, elements that are only about a measure or two long, to the next, then you are the one stringing together your dance on the fly, like beads on a necklace. Presumably, you are considering where you are on the line of dance with each new element you choose. If, however, you have learned lengthier patterns, groupings of elements as a choreographed piece or as a syllabus-based pattern, you need to understand how the pattern travels in order to understand where and when to use it. Some longer patterns shape naturally to the line of dance, in which case you can start them anywhere in the room. Some patterns are designed to travel straight and cannot be curved or bent, and in that instance, you have to wait until you have a long open area of dance floor in front of you. Finally, some patterns are designed to fit around a corner and are best deployed at the end of a long stretch because they will automatically carry you around the corner and into the next straightaway. Of course, even having all these navigational guidelines in the front of your mind does not account for the unpredictable movements of your fellow dance floor citizens. Your best-laid navigational plans can be thwarted by traffic. Just like on the road, people cross in front of you, and dancers get backed up like cars in a traffic jam. Leaders always need to have their trouble steps ready to be deployed at any time. Sometimes that even means stopping to wait for the traffic to clear. Just because you're an advanced dancer doesn't mean you always have an artful solution to every instance of dance floor gridlock. Sometimes you just have to stop in the most aesthetically pleasing way that you can. But that's a worst-case scenario. Many times, even in the tightest dance floor situations, you can at least do some manner of sideward treble step. Hesitations in waltz or Viennese waltz, slow sways in foxtrot, or an extra long or two-sided foot draw in tango will usually do the trick, even if you can't immediately move forward. While most of the navigational burden does rest on the leader's shoulders, that does not mean that followers bear no responsibility for the success of traveling dances. Every dance is ultimately a partnership. There are 3 things followers should do to aid the leader in navigating our racetrack line of dance. 1 is to be the rearview mirror. Even the most skilled leader does not have a 360-degree view of the dance floor at all times. I have witnessed a number of collisions and near misses where 2 leaders careened directly toward each other backwards. Giving a cautionary signal, like a shoulder squeeze when you see danger approaching, can be a huge help to your leader. The second thing you should do is understand the line of dance. Just because you're not the one making the decisions about what patterns to do and where doesn't mean you can just space out and check your phone when your teacher starts talking about navigational theory. Knowing how the line of dance works lets you approach your role in the partnership with navigational awareness. Knowing where you are facing in relation to the line of dance helps you guesstimate how you'll be stepping next. If your back is pointed down the line of dance, chances are you're going to be stepping backward. If you are facing down the line of dance, chances are you're going to be stepping forward. Having an accurate estimate of where you'll be stepping next helps you fulfill the third big follower's responsibility in traveling dances. Move. Yes, you are following, but you're also powering the movement of traveling dances down the floor. One of my dance coaches described the lead-follow partnership dynamics in the traveling dances by saying, "The leader is the driver, the follower is the motor." Your leader may be steering, pushing the gas pedal, and hitting the brakes, but you two won't be going anywhere if you stall out. So make sure you move with elegant power and consistency so that you both have a smooth ride. It is important to remember that your traveling dances present extra challenges and considerations that all the other non-traveling dances do not. If you're foggy on what these are and how to use them, please consult your personal teacher. You might benefit from a tune-up to your navigational systems on your next lesson. In the meantime, cut yourself a break if your traveling dances seem more difficult than everything else. They're supposed to be harder. And frame your expectations when you dance them to realize that your game plans will not always happen as easily as they do in spot dances where traffic and direction are not such a big consideration. Thank you for listening, and be sure to look for more articles and audiocasts on our website, pittsburghdancer.com.